Hey everyone, this is Coach Marc Nolan, and welcome back to another episode of Don't Kick Your Coverage in our NIL podcast series. I want to welcome you back to the Sports Parent University podcast, which was a 4-part series I kicked off about 2.5 years ago, going from freshman to senior year. And today, we're going to restart this and relaunch it because of so many things that have happened. So it's a good 4-year roadmap moving forward. And this is the freshman year episode, which is the most misunderstood. It's the most underestimated, and honestly, the most important year of an entire high school athlete's journey. Look, if you've been following me for a while, you know I've been doing this for over 50 years. I've trained over 4,000 athletes, spoken to thousands of parents in every sport across the United States. And I've watched decades of mistakes repeat and repeat and repeat themselves every single year. And if there's one truth I wish every family knew on day one, it's this. The hardest part of becoming a high school athlete, it's not the talent, it's not size, it's not technique, it's the transition from middle school to high school. So let's break this down a little bit. I'll break it down by sections. In section 1, we're going to call this the transition trap. This is for the athlete in middle school to high school who gets shocked. Freshmen think high school is just 8th grade with bigger lockers. But when that first high school practice hits, the speed changes, the size changes, the physicality changes, the expectations change, and suddenly your son or daughter realizes, holy cow, this is not the same game they played last year in 8th grade. Upperclassmen telling me the exact same thing every single week. They say, Coach, I wish someone warned me how big the jump was from middle school to high school. And that jump, that transition, is where freshmen either get overwhelmed or they simply rise. And for parents, the middle school to high school shock, it's not just the kids who face a transition. Yes, parents, you get hit just as hard. Suddenly, teachers aren't chasing missing assignments anymore. Coaches expect independence, not excuses. Grades actually matter. Freshman GPA becomes a permanent record, and your athlete is now competing against kids who are 3, even 4 years older. Most parents tell me, usually around junior year, Coach, we didn't take freshman year seriously enough. And now we're trying to catch up with our son or daughter. Freshman year is not the year to see how things go, relax. Freshman year sets the entire trajectory. And here's what I call the 40-yard illusion, or the most common parent blindside, and a lot of them. But here I'm going to talk about my football parents, especially my kicker and punter families, because I hear this every single season. Coach, my son hit a 40-yard field goal in middle school. Or, Coach, my son punted 40 yards last season. Or, Coach, he was the best kicker in our entire league. Parents, I want you to hear me clearly. A 40-yard field goal in middle school is not the same as a 40-yard varsity field goal. 40-yard punt in 8th grade has zero resemblance to a varsity punt and under pressure. And here's why. In middle school, there is no real edge rush. There's no 17-year-old flying off the edge at 1.7 seconds. There's no demand for a 1.25 second snap and hold. And it certainly is not that big crowd. And there's no real pressure. There's no consequences. There's no 225-pound linebackers trying to block the kick. A middle school kick is done inside a bubble. High school, that bubble pops on day 1. You now have real pressure, real operation times, real speed, and real athletes coming full tilt. And this is true for every sport, not just kicking and punting. In basketball, in middle school, kids shoot uncontested layups. High school defenders, they take charges. In soccer, middle school it's like playtime. High school is collision sport. Baseball, middle school, throw straight fastballs. High school brings curveballs, all kinds of things going on, sliders, and yes, 85-mile-per-hour arms. In track, middle school runs for fun. High school is a war of speed, endurance, and form. Every sport has the same moment. The transition is bigger than anyone expects. And that's why freshman year must be treated as the foundation year, not the, we'll figure it out later year. So in our second section, I want to talk a little bit about the academic side of the house. And this is the first real battleground for all the parents and the athletes. You know what? Ask any junior or senior at your current school what their biggest regret is, because I hear it all the time. And the same sentence nearly every day comes up. Coach, I wish I took my freshman grades more seriously. Freshman GPA becomes the foundation of your NCAA core GPA. It is your recruiting credit score, like a FICO, I guess. And once you dig a hole academically, it may take 2 or 3 years to climb out, if you climb out at all. GPA sets your recruiting ceiling targets. You got to have a 3.3 minimum. 3.5 and up keeps more doors open. Build strong study habits early on, and you're going to have a great freshman year. Your freshman transcript never goes away. It never resets. It never disappears. You either are building on momentum or you're building a mountain you'll have to climb out and over later on. Speaking of building, we're going to talk about building the 4-year academic blueprint. Pretty simple. Freshmen, parents, meet with the guidance counselors now. Map out some serious things: NCAA core courses, graduation requirements, honors, AP sequences, tutoring needs if you need them, academic support systems like Khan Academy. This is where the families who get it separate themselves from the families who wing it. And that's time management begins in 9th grade. Believe it or not, if a freshman can't manage school, they're going to struggle in college athletics, where school plus sports is literally a full-time job. You got to teach them now. You got to set expectations now. And you have to build that internal structure now. The next section is really about athletic development and the things we do here. Mechanics come before muscle. Freshmen love to chase power, and I understand that, and distance. Parents love to chase highlight videos. But the truth, freshman year should be about the movement quality, not max weight, mechanics, not muscle, confidence, not comparison. You got to learn how to move before trying to move big. And freshmen, you should focus on a couple of these things: balance, flexibility, footwork, stability, body control, and injury prevention habits. These are the skills that separate varsity players later on. And talking about strength training, one of the things you got to do is you got to do it right, or don't do it at all. Freshmen sometimes build bad habits fast. They need coaching, they need supervision, and they need progressions, not ego. Not the guy that played 100 years ago and is a 400-pound history teacher. Upperclassmen tell me weekly, Coach, I wish I learned proper lifting form when I was younger, especially my freshman year. Now look, there's also a thing that goes on with what we call multi-sport advantage. Freshman year really is the last natural window to play multiple sports. And yes, this does build. It builds better coordination, higher athletic IQ, more confidence, better conditioning, and less burnout. This is the time to stay wide and not narrow. Now let's talk about film and self-assessment. Freshmen should be filming, but not for recruiting. They should film to learn, and they should film to archive what they've done. It's really about a self-assessment. Is one of the greatest gifts you can give a young athlete, because film teaches them a couple of things. Teaches them awareness, teaches them mechanics. It does teach them confidence and growth. And yes, accountability. Every freshman should have a baseline video, a private 30-second clip to compare year to year to see how well they are doing. And yes, this includes how we look at character and communication. If there is one skill freshmen struggle with more than anything else I hear, it's communication. They don't know how to talk to adults. They certainly don't know how to talk and ask questions. They don't know how to advocate for themselves, and they don't know how to handle pressure. Freshman year does fix that, mom and dads, and for your athletes. But you know what? You got to teach them how to speak. Eye contact is important, firm voice, clear sentences, confidence, and respect. These are recruitable traits, and they start now in the freshman year. But you know what? You also got to teach them how to fail. Freshman year is about handling adversity. It is about losing. It's about missing. It's about getting beat. It's about taking criticism. It's about getting overwhelmed and learning from your mistakes, because these skills are more valuable than any other stat. And speaking of stats, let's talk about the social media maturity stats. If you got a goofy bunch of stuff on social media, clean it up. Be responsible. No drama and no nonsense. Coaches will check. Freshmen who understand this early on avoid huge issues later. So please keep your stuff clean. And let's talk about exposure. What freshman year is not? Freshman year is not a recruiting year. Let me say that again for the parents in the back row. It is not a recruiting year. It is not a rankings year. It is not an exposure year. And it certainly is not a college camp year. Freshman year is a foundation year. It's where athletes learn, they develop and improve, and they grow and they build and they prepare. Promotion comes later, much later. And parents, here's the role that you play in this year. This is also your transition year too. You must begin shifting from manager to guide. This is the year your athlete must learn some independence. Encourage them to email teachers. Communicate with coaches. Schedule their own study time, and yes, build self-responsibility. Parents who hover, please slow down and slow down the development, because parents who guide build self-starters. And here's my closing message to everyone. Freshman year is the foundation. The year you never get back. The year that determines the next 3 years. The year where habits are built. Confidence begins. Academics matter. Movement matters. Communication matters. And the transition, the biggest transition, begins. So if you take freshman year seriously, everything becomes serious, easier later on. And if you don't, those regrets show up in junior and senior year, and they're much harder to fix. So please, build the foundation right now, because this is where the future begins. So ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for listening to this episode. I hope it hit home with some of you moms and dads and athletes. And remember to please like this and share it with your will. And for those of you who are listening to this today, week before Thanksgiving, have yourself an amazing Thanksgiving. And we'll talk to you next week on our second series, part 2, sophomore year. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.